So to start things off, I'm going to talk a little bit about making your own logos. Now there's a lot of different theories and a lot of different ways you can start this process, but to keep it simple, we're going to talk mainly about making a text-based logo using your initials or just your name. The easiest thing you can do is to type out your initials or your name and find a specific font that matches whatever style or feeling that you're going for. Now when you choose these fonts, there's hundreds, thousands of them out there on the internet. You can see even on my computer I've got an entire list of well over 100 different styles of font. What you want to do is just narrow it down to a handful of fonts to pick and choose from. Don't look at every single one of them, don't fret the details. The main thing is, look at each one of them and start comparing them to each other. Do you want something that's bold? Do you want something that's modern? Do you want something that's maybe whimsical or tells a story? That's what you're looking for. I tend to choose about a dozen or so, maybe even less than that, and then go with one of those that works from there. So in this case, I've got a variety of modern fonts, a variety of serif and sans serif, and even some whimsical kind of miscellaneous funky fonts. Once I choose a font that I like, let's say I like this font. And the reason I chose A and Q is because it's got a good variety of shapes within the two letters. Now I can take these letters and start to play around with how they interact with each other. Since I'm working with Illustrator, it makes it very easy to move these vector shapes around. This is why Illustrator is the most commonly used type of logo development software. You don't really want to do this in Photoshop. I'm going to make several copies of this. And to do it really quickly, I'm holding down my Option key with my black arrow tool and just clicking and dragging. And then I've got my copies made here. In order to access the vector format of these fonts, I've got my type selected. Go up to the Type menu and choose Create Outlines. This will break your text into vector shapes. Now I won't be able to type these out anymore, but now you can start to see the little individual vector points that I can click and move around. Since both of these are grouped together and I want to work on one of them at a time, I'll go to Object and choose Ungroup. Now I can click on individual letters and shapes and move those around as well. Now it's simply a matter of playing around and seeing what they look like when they overlap. Does that make an interesting shape? Can I use that? Can I stack them on top of each other and get some other interesting form? I'm looking for negative and positive shapes. I'm looking for how things will interact with each other. If I needed to, I can select my white arrow, then I can click on individual points. Let's say I wanted to select these bottom little leg here. Click and drag over that. Now I can move around those individual points without distorting the entire character. And I've done this a little bit ahead of time, so I know what shapes I'm looking for. That's kind of an interesting little negative positive shape right there. I could easily click on another leg and start to slant things out, giving them different forms from this. Basically, I'm taking the font in its original form and now I'm modifying it to match the needs that I want from here. The reason I make several copies is because, well, now I can take this form and keep tweaking it. I want to give myself a variety of things to look for. The main thing is you always want to keep things as simple as possible. From here we can start to further develop my logo. Other things I like to do is to use our Shapes tool. I've got rectangles, ellipses, even polygons. And with these I can click and drag and see what they look like inside of a variety of shapes. We'll send that to the back. Now since I am working in black and white, I need to maybe reverse that out. So let's turn this to white and see what that looks like inside of that shape. What would it look like if I gave it an outline? So we'll copy and paste it in front and do like a little border edge around that. Again, what does it look like here? I will take this, make a copy of it, change it up, and see what it looks like with other areas as well. Give yourself a good variety. Another tool I love to use, let's turn this back into solid color, is once I do start to add color and I want to see how the shapes overlap and interact with each other, is my Shape Builder tool. The Shape Builder tool is this one right here. It may be hiding underneath your paint bucket or your live selection tool, but with this one I can select my areas. Wherever I hover over it, you can see it's going to start to shade it out. What Illustrator is doing is it's looking for those filled color shapes. And if I was to select a color now, let's say I chose red, and I clicked on a color, it would automatically fill in just that area. Notice that it picked up on just that. If I wanted to, I could click and drag over multiple areas and it would automatically fill those in as well too. Another thing, if I hold down my Option key, notice my little cursor turns into a minus sign. With Option held down, I can click on an area and it will delete away an area that I have. And this is just a fun, quick way of filling in different areas with different colors and seeing what results from those. So this is kind of my basic steps on creating a logo, specifically if you're creating a logo from type. Start off with what you know, just very basic, simple fonts that are already loaded on your computer. Then from there, tweak those fonts. See how they overlap, see how you can change the letter forms. From there, you may get yourself a nice, simple, easy to use logo. When you do want to save this, you can go to File and Save As. I recommend saving it as an EPS format. This way you can open it up in other vector formats if you don't have Adobe Illustrator. Otherwise, save it as an Illustrator format. Also, if you want to save this as a JPEG or any other rasterized form, you can go to File, down to Save for Web. This will bring up our Save for Web dialog box. Notice that it's going to pick up everything that's on there, not just the artboard that I was working on. But if you look in the top right-hand corner, you can see there are some predefined styles to save things as. JPEGs is being the most common. Set your quality. You don't really have to worry about whether it's progressive or if it has an ICC profile. But from here, at the very bottom, we can hit Save, and this will prompt me to save this now as a JPEG. When it comes to working with rasterized images, the resolution and the quality of it really matters, but that depends on how you're going to be using it. In my case, I've got a variety of images that I've saved from Reddit. Actually, I found these online. However, I'll delete this one away. Look at the size of each one of these. Some of them are a little bit less than a megabyte, and several of them are well over a megabyte. This one here is 9 megabytes big. If I was to open it up, you can see that they're really huge. This is taking its time about loading. So these large images are really good for sending off to a printer. And because you always want to have a high quality image to be printed, and you can scale it to whatever size that you need. However, if I was sending something to the web, I really wouldn't want to have a large image. That's because it takes forever for large images to download. Sometimes also you can format your images to be a better quality for printing. They don't always have to be 9 megabytes large. Sometimes you can scale them down to be just the exact size that you need and the resolution for printing. So here's what we're going to do with this. In our case, I'm going to open up this 9 megabyte Revit image by clicking and dragging it down to Photoshop. Give it a second to load. Here it is. Now, if I want to know the exact size and resolution of an image, you can always go to Image, down to Image Size. This will open up our Image Size dialog box. Here's the thing to remember. The width, the height, and the resolution. Now, these are all kind of dependent on each other. So if I was to scale this down, notice I've got Scale Styles and Constrain Proportions checked off. If I was to make this a smaller width, we'll say by about half. We'll make it 50 inches wide. Because I have Constrain Proportions checked off, it also constrained the height proportions as well. Now, if I'm reducing the height and the width of it, that means I'm getting rid of pixels. This means I can now increase my resolution. Since I halved this, I could almost double this. We'll do 180. And this keeps roughly the same amount of pixels that I have. A higher resolution, but a smaller image. Here's the rule of thumb to remember. If you're going to reduce the size of your image, it's a good idea to increase the resolution. This way you don't lose any quality. If you only reduce the size but keep the resolution the same, you're going to have some really grainy images. Speaking of resolution, here's some numbers to keep in mind. If you're going to save an image for web quality, make the width of it and the height of it in general about 5 inches. Set the resolution between 72 to 150. That's a pretty good quality resolution, but it'll also reduce the size of the file just good enough to place online. If you're going to get something printed, Set it to be the size that you need it. Actually, sometimes I set it a little bit larger, so maybe I would set this up to 12 inches wide. The resolution needs to be between 300 to 600 dots per inch, or pixels per inch. This will save it at a high enough resolution for most quality printers to give you a good quality printed image. So let's save it at this. I'll say OK. You can see my image visually shrunk down just a little bit, but I'm going to save this one as a low res. So we'll do Save As. This time I'll save it right next to the rest of them, and we'll call this low res. Set to be a JPEG. We'll say OK. The next option will ask me what quality do I want. We'll keep it high quality. Say OK to that, and we'll close it out. When it comes to laying out your actual portfolio, I highly recommend using Adobe InDesign. InDesign is multiple page design software. This means you can take text and images and put them together in multiple pages, and you can see the entire spread layout, versus working in Photoshop where you only work with one page or one image at a time. So it's really popular, very powerful to be able to do this type of things. However, there's a couple of things that you may need to know. To create a new document in InDesign, if this is your first time opening up, you can always click on Document, or if you don't see this image, you can always go to File, down to New, and choose Document. This will give us our new document dialog box. Now for a portfolio, we're going to check off facing pages. This means it'll lay out each of our new pages in facing book format, side by side. As far as page size goes, you can set it to be letter or tabloid. Letter is 8.5 by 11, tabloid is 11 by 17. I'm going to work in the larger size. Also, set your orientation. You may not want it to be a portrait style up and down. You may instead want it to be landscape. And this will automatically swap your width and height. Additionally, if you need to set up your margins, you can type some in here. Right now, since I've got the little check or the link checked off, whatever I type in one, let's say I typed in 1/4 of an inch in one, if I click on the other, it'll automatically populate into those fields as well. However, if I need one of these to be different, let's say I wanted my inside edge to be a little bit, have a little bit more margin to it, I can unlink them. Now I can set this one to be a little bit larger and all the others remain the same. As far as bleed and slug go, that has to do with trimming off the outer edges of your document. And if you're printing it locally, then you're probably not going to be dealing with printing all the way to the edge of your page. So I'm going to keep mine set up like this. We'll say OK. And this is the document that I have. Now there's a lot that you can do with this, but the two palettes that we need to have open are our Pages palette, and then later we'll open our Paragraph Styles palette. Most of the time these can be found on the right hand side, but if you don't see them, you can always go to Window, and here are all of the palettes that we need. If it's opened, it'll have a check mark next to it. If it's not opened, you can click on it and that'll open it up for you and put a check mark next to this list as well. So here's the first thing we're going to do. Let's set up some guidelines that'll give us the ability to keep everything nice and gridded off. Using a guide or using a grid is the perfect way of keeping everything in order. To do this, we're going to go into our master page. Think of master pages as templates. I can create multiple templates, and whenever I need to use them, I can just drag them into my pages and start working with them. So I'm going to work in my master page to set up this template. To access this, we're going to double click the master page. You can see it's now highlighted and I'm working on this page. We'll zoom back out. And I've got a left and a right page that I'm working on. This is because we chose that facing pages when we first set up our document. So the first thing I want to do is to set up a little grid to work to know where to place things. To do this, we'll go up to Layout, down to Ruler Guides. Excuse me, not Ruler Guides. Go up to Layout, Create Guides. There we go. With Create Guides, this will give us a dialog box that allows us to set a number of rows and columns and how we want them to fit to our page. Also notice that I've got Preview checked off. With Preview turned on, whenever I increase the number of rows, you can see they're automatically populating into the document I'm working on. So if I needed 9 rows, I can also add 10 columns, and there everything is nice and evenly spaced between my margin guides. Additionally, the gutter is the amount of distance between two guides. You may want to decrease it or increase it. You can set it to 0 and have no gutter at all, and now you've just got regular ruled lines. Also notice that these lines will not print. They're just there as guides. For now, let's see, I'll add a little bit more gutter from there, and we'll say OK. So I've got some guidelines set up. This is the perfect way to know where I can align text and images. So let's actually make some text, some dummy text, and some dummy image boxes to work with. To add text in InDesign, we want to use our Type tool. Looks like a T. With the Type tool, we need to click and drag and make a text box. In this case, I'm just dragging it off for now to choose the specific size. I'm going to make some headline text. So we'll do title here and then project, something like that. From here, I can highlight my text. And if I look at the very top left-hand side, here's where I can choose my different fonts, font styles if that's applicable to the font. I can change the size of it, the amount of leading, even some quick styling, and the amount of space between those two. All of the formatting options are found up here at the top of my page. Even the alignment, here's left, center, and even justified type alignment as well. You can do pretty much anything that you want in InDesign with text. So let's make this a lot bigger. I've got Minion Pro, we'll make it bold. Let's make it bold condensed. A lot bigger from here. Can hit my up arrows to move quickly. There we go. So let's say my project title will be this big. That's good. If I need to, I can move the size of my text box. If your text box does get too small, I'm going to intentionally do this. Notice that it gets rid of the text or the words that are cropped off, and it gives you a little red plus sign saying you've got some overset text. Simply change the size of the box or size of the type that you're working with. So there's my title text. Let's add some paragraph text. To do this, I'm going to grab my Type tool again. This time I'll click and drag, and I'm just going to give it a simple subtitle. Hit return, and I want to fill in the rest of my text box with just some random letters or some what's called Greeking or lorem ipsum. To fill in just random words, InDesign, if you go up to the top Type drop-down menu, choose Fill with Placeholder Text. Placeholder text will fill it in with just random Latin words. This is good to use because it gives you kind of an idea of the size and the amount of area that you can fill up with whatever font or type that you've chosen. From here, I can continue to format things. So let's say I wanted to add a little bit of first line indent. We'll tab that over. That's good. If I wanted my subtitle to be larger, maybe make it bold, and we'll also center it. That's good too. Now if I wanted to preview what I'm working on, hit your W key on your keyboard. W will go into preview mode and it takes away all of your guides. Coming along nicely. Here's another thing to consider. Let's say I wanted to add some color to what I'm working with. All of my subtitles, I want those to be maybe a dark red. So I've highlighted my subtitle text. If you look at the bottom of your toolbox, you've got your two little swatches. The one in front here is my fill color. The one behind, excuse me, is my stroke or my outline color. I'm only going to work in my fill color. Double click it. And this will open up our color picker. Let's say I wanted to make it a dark red, so I'll choose the red that I want. Additionally, I'm going to add this as a color swatch. And we'll say OK. Notice now that my text color is red. Since I saved it as a swatch, I can now go to the top of my menu, and here's some predefined color swatches. Here's some default swatches, and if I scroll down, here's my new dark red that I'm working in from this one. So saving text color is a great thing to do when to quickly apply it. So if I wanted to highlight the color of my type, my headline type, and quickly change that to red, I can do that too from up there. Another thing you may want to do is to change the color of your text box. To do this, if I was to select my text now, I still got a T inside of my color swatch. I'm going to use my black arrow selection tool. Now I've got my text box selected, and I know it's selected because I can see the bounding box. Check out my fill color now. Now it's just regular, it doesn't have a T inside of it, so this indicates that I can change the color of the box. If I was to fill it in, tell you what, let's choose one of my swatches up here at the top. We'll fill it in with black, which looks like this, and we'll make it a tint of black. To change the tint, look at the top of your swatches, and we'll pull it down to maybe 15 or so percent. That's looking good too. Hit W, go into preview mode, and now I've got a text box, some headlines. One thing I don't like about this text box is how close those words are getting to the edge. If you want to add some little inset to move all of your words in just a little bit, we're going to select the text box again, go up to go to Object, down to Text Frame Options. Keyboard shortcut is Command B. Within the text frame options, we're going to check off Preview. Here's my text inset. If I increase the amount of inset, you can see there's a little box that nudges all of my text inside of it just a little bit more. And this is pushing it away from the edges that I have. So we'll keep it at 1/8 of an inch. We'll say OK to that. Now my text box looks a lot better. Very clean. I can make it whatever size I want. And as far as placement goes, I've got my grids to tell me exactly where I can place things. Let's do the same thing for some picture images. To add pictures, we're going to use our rectangle frame tool. And they do come in different styles. You can use regular rectangles, ellipses, or polygons, but since most of my pictures are rectangular, that's the one I'm going to work with. The same thing as I do with my text box, I can click and drag. This will give me a rectangle frame. I do need to size it up to fit my margins. Since I've got nothing in it, you can see there's an X going all the way through it. Additionally, just so I can see it a little bit easier, I'm also going to apply that same black with a mild tint to it. This time I'll make it a darker tint. From here, everything is complete. I've got title text, I've got some subtitles and some body copy, and I've even got some dummy picture images that I can work with. Now it comes to the ability to play around where things can be placed. So if I wanted, say, 4 images on here, I'm giving myself 4 blank images, and I'm playing around with where my type can be located on my page as well. Now I'm going really quick, and I'm just kind of playing around with what things look like. But the ability to have a grid to work with allows me to work quick. And so now I've got a basic text area to work with. I've got it on the left side here. All I would need to do is to select everything. Command C to copy. We'll move over here. Command V to paste. And then it's simply a matter of placing all of my elements on the left and the right side as well. And then maybe having to reformat as necessary. Another thing you may want to do is to save the different styles of text that you're working on. If I wanted to continuously type and retype something, well, you see how long it took me to set the size of it, then set the type style that I have, and then set the color. What I would like to do is to save all of this as a predefined style. To do this, we're going to open up our paragraph styles. Paragraph styles are usually on the right-hand side. Again, if you don't see it, always go to your drop-down menu. You can go to Styles, and there's our paragraph styles. Paragraph styles are kind of like templates for the different styles of text. So in this case, I've already defined what my headline will be, so I'm going to highlight this text. In my Paragraph Styles dialog box, click on the New Style at the bottom right-hand corner. You can see by default it calls it Paragraph Style 1. If I double-click, this will open up my style options, and now I can give it a name. In this case, I'll call it Headline. The paragraph styles will save all of the formatting that I've done. You can see here's my basic character formats. Here's my, if I did any indentions, or even if I changed the character color, it's all saved within here. When I say OK, Now I've got that saved. Let's do the same thing for a subtitle. Select the subtitle, make a new one, paragraph style 1, double click, and we'll call this subtitle. And we'll also do the same thing for some body copies. Select it, make a new one, double click, body copy, and say OK to that. Here's the fun part. The next time I need a title, I can click and drag, type out the new title, and instead of having to go up and try to find the same font, try to find the same size, in one click I can click on headline and it automatically formats it to be a headline. If I accidentally say, oops, I need that to be a subtitle, click on subtitle, and it automatically formats it to be a subtitle or even body copy, whatever you need it to be, automatically saved as a paragraph style. Those are very, very powerful to work with. Another powerful thing to know about the paragraph styles, if I ever want to change it, let's say I hate that font, I want it to be a sans serif font, I can double click on my headline style, bring back up my options. Now I can change it up from here. So if I'll choose my basic character format, let's change it, instead of Minion, let's do Myriad Pro. And you can see automatically it's changing not just what I have selected, but every instance of that paragraph style. So let's change that to semi-bold. That's good. We'll say OK. Paragraph styles and character styles and these different formats that we're working in are very, very powerful to work with. What I've done is I've gone ahead and pre-made several different master pages that we're working in. So in this case, I've got a master already set up. Let's close this out. Here's the pre-made ones that I've already done with this one. In this case, I've got a master page for my project titles, project description, title here. I've made a new master page for a multiple page layout. In this case, you can see it's got several different areas to put images into. And I've got a 2-page spread layout that can work from here. To make a new master page, click on the top right-hand side and choose New Master. This will prompt you. You can give it a specific name. So if I wanted to say New 2-page spread, we'll say OK to that. Now I've got a new blank master page and I can continue add on. And that's all I did to give myself these variety of different master pages to work with. To go back to my normal editing mode, simply double click page 1. So we're back to normal. Now let's start applying these different master pages. So if I wanted to start off with a title page, I'm going to click the project title, drag it down to here. Now I've got that up there. If I wanted to follow up maybe with a 2-page spread, we'll drag that one into here. Maybe the last page will be this 2-page right here. And all I'm doing is clicking and dragging, and you can see that they've automatically added these pages onto here. You as a designer, the first thing you need to do, rather than just putting images on there, stop and think about how you want things to be presented on your page. Once you've got the layout scheme done, then it's simply a matter of fitting your content to that layout. Now let's start using our page. I'm going to work on this very bottom page. And we'll say just on this side. You'll notice once you place something on here, you're not going to be able to select it. This is because our master page has been locked in, and we need to override that master page. So to do this, click on the page you want to work on. In my case, page 6. Then click on it, and choose Override Master Page Items. With this done, I can now click on the individual images and move them around, change their size, and add to them. Additionally, if I accidentally click on my guidelines, I can move those around. If you want to lock down your guides, you can go to View, down to Guides, and make sure Lock Guides is set up. Mine are, so I can't accidentally select my guides as well. Okay, now let's start adding some images to the area. To do this, select the box that you want. In this case, I want this, well, let's use this one since it's a little bit more convenient. Select the box that you want to place an image into, go to File, down to Place, and then find the image that you want to add. In our case, let's add one of our Revit images to here. So I'll choose this Revit image. We'll say open, and it placed the image into this text box. Now notice that it filled up the entire area. Actually, my image is larger than the area that I need. So to scale it down, there's two things I can do. I can either click on the center little circle that appears, and you can see there's now a large bounding box, and I can click and drag to scale it down this way. Or a faster method, once you've got it selected, is to go to Object, down to Fitting, and either fill the frame proportionally or fit the content proportionally. Each will do something slightly different. For instance, this one will fill the frame, but it still leaves a little bit on the outside edges, versus the other one will fit the content, but it also may give you a little bit more of your picture behind it as well. So either one will allow you to scale it up or scale it down, or you can custom do it this way. Notice that once it's in the frame, now I can choose how I want it to be cropped off. Another thing you can do, if you want to quickly fill in more than one frame, is start by not selecting any of the frames. Nothing is selected. I'm going to go to File, down to Place. This time let's go into some of our details. I'm going to choose all three of these chairs. Click on one, hold down Shift, click on the other. Notice that all three are now selected. When I say Open, check out my cursor. It's following my cursor around. And wherever I click, if I click directly into here, it'll place it into that picture box. Now I've got the same problem as far as size goes. So I'm going to click on each one of these, held down Shift, and I selected all of them. To quickly fill something in, I can click on one of these two icons, and they do exactly the same thing. They fit the content proportionally, or they fill the frame proportionally. Let's choose this one, and you can see they're now nice and filled up, but they're being cropped off. So I'm going to choose the second one. That'll scale it down a little bit better. Maybe I can make this one larger and get away with it. That's good. However, these two chairs, I'm still seeing the grayness of the box. So what I want to do is to change my box color to white. So I've selected this box. We'll go up to the swatches, and we'll choose paper or white, and now it's filled in for there. Do the same thing for this one. All I'm doing is changing the color of my box from being gray to being white, and that's how we filled in that background area with that one. This is the essence of laying things out in InDesign. As soon as you have your basic structure, your grid set up, you know where to place things, that's how you're going to have a good layout. Then you start placing your images in there. Then you start placing your text. The best designs that I've seen as far as layouts go are the ones that kept their layout very, very simple and uncluttered. You mainly want to focus on one good big image, and you mainly want to focus on a little bit of text. Most people aren't going to read a lot of text. What they really want to see is your projects, and what they really want to see is how well you can think and how well you can design. Keep it very, very simple. From here, it's simply a matter of up to you of how you want to place things. One last thing I want to show you is how do you create a crop out type of effect with your images. And there's a variety of different ways of doing this. So here's what I want to do. Let's say I had a background, and we'll give it a color. It was blue. We'll make it a darker blue. From here, what I want to do is I want to place one of my models inside of that blue area. But I want to crop off this black area, or maybe I want to crop off the white area that's around this. So to do this, I'll tell you what, let's place it into there and I'll show you what it looks like. I'm grabbing another picture tool. Command D will place things into there. Think of D for drop. And let's choose Model 2. We'll do that one. Say OK. If I was to place it in here now, this is what it looks like. This is what I mean. I don't want the white area to be behind it. Instead, I want there to be just a solid image. Let's choose a better image. There's Model 3. Nice big quality image. Perfect. In this case, I want to get rid of the white area that's around the outside edge of my model. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to open up, we're working with Model 3 in Photoshop. Photoshop is layer-based editing, so what I need to do is to convert my background into a layer, just a transparent layer. To do this, double-click on the background layer. And this will open up your new layer. You can give it a name or not. We'll say OK. Now it's a basic general layer. If I was to grab my eraser tool with this, I'll make it a nice hard edge brush. If I was to click on the white area, you can see now when I erase, it gives me my checkered transparency background. So I would need to erase away the white area that I don't want. A faster method of doing this would be to use your selection tools. I like to use the Magic Wand tool. It looks like a firecracker going off. With the Magic Wand, I can set my tolerance at the top, check off continuous, be sure that's checked on, and then click on the white area, and it selects all of the white area around there. And with it selected, I can hit delete, and now it quickly deleted away that back area. Now comes the magic part. We're going to save this as a format that supports transparency. Go to File, down to Save As. A good format that supports transparency is the TIFF format. Usually at the very bottom. There it is, TIFF. TIFF is also great for printing things. So with TIFF selected, we'll hit Save. This will bring up our second dialog box. Make sure Save Transparency is checked on. We'll say OK to that. It will give you a warning saying, hey, are you sure you want to have layers? We'll say OK. And now I've got it saved as a TIFF. Here it is saved in my box. Notice also that TIFFs tend to be very, very large images. This is because they're non-compressed. So let's jump back into InDesign. I'm going to replace this image with the new TIFF that I created. So we'll delete it away. Let's go back to my page. There we are. Command D to drop it in. Now when I drop in my model TIFF, hit open, this is what I get. Nice background where I can see exactly what's behind it and know white from there. Additionally, sometimes people like to add some special effects. Let's say instead of a white background, I wanted to add a drop shadow to what I have. Any type of transparency or special effects can be found in the little FX icon at the top of your screen. I've got my image selected, so when I click on Effects, here's the different things that I have. Drop shadow being the most common one. With it turned on, here's my effects menu. Make sure your preview is checked on, and you can see the drop shadow being created. Now all I have to do is to choose the direction of that drop shadow, the distance, offset, that sort of thing as well. Once I'm satisfied, hit OK, and that will create the drop shadow on there. From here I can move it around, I can resize it, use it as necessary. To turn off a drop shadow, simply select it again, go up to your effects, and then uncheck drop shadow from there. That'll turn off that one from that. We'll say OK to that, and there we go. So this is the basics of using InDesign, working in Photoshop to prepare your images, and also using Illustrator to add your own icon and your own personal touch.